So we will start this evening's gathering. And this evening is the third and the last Tuesday evening class with me. And we will start the class making sure our intention being here and to participate in the activities such as meditation, short recitations, and listening to the talk. Then at the end, if there are questions, few questions and answers, and the conclusion. So participating in these activities with our body, speech, and mind, with a positive mind, with a positive intention, is something quite useful and helpful during the class, and also, at the when we go back, and continue our daily routine activities. The reason is, many of us and most of us, have experienced that our mental states, that our minds, thoughts, emotions play big role in our when we engage in activities. Sometimes very obviously, very forefront of our mental states, and many of the times more in a subconscious level, and not very mentally, not very active. But they are part of, because of we are very much, our mind is very much tuned or familiarized. Therefore, that we don't actively, mentally think, but nevertheless, the subconsciously or the background, the different mental states, different emotions, different thoughts are operating. And the Buddha, the historical Buddha, and subsequently Buddhist teachers have found through the observations, analysis, they found those the leading mental states, leading our activities, mental state that lead our activities of the body, speech, and mind. Either routine activities or something, the special or one-off activities. Nevertheless, so these leading, the mental states, thoughts, emotions that lead our activities of the body, speech, and minds are, more or less, the most important factors, most important, the parts of the activities that we engage in, the physically, verbally, and mentally. And because they are being the most important parts or the factors in our activities, and the being those mental states being more positive, more constructive, more the better understanding, better sort of acknowledge a better understanding, makes the activities, whatever that might be, makes those activities more helpful, useful, more positively productive to ourselves and to others, and immediately as well as in the long term. And that's why the historical Buddha and these subsequent Buddhist teachers have suggested again and again to their followers to really to pay attention to their the mental states prior to the events that we engage in. And in the Buddhist classical texts, these mental states are explained in two stages, saying in Tibetan first, the gyukulung, that means causal intention, causal mental states. Causal mental state in the sense, the prior to the events, prior to the activities that we engage in physically, verbally, and mentally. Those mental states lead us to do those activities very consciously or subconsciously. And those mental states are called causal, the intention or the thoughts or the emotions. And then the second group, it is called gyukulung, tujukulung. Tujukulung, literally it means the intention at the time. Intention at the time in the sense of the mental states at the time of while we are acting. While we are acting physically, verbally, and mentally. Either that action may last just few minutes, few seconds, or that action may last few hours, few days, few decades. That's up to the individual actions. But during the activities, that mental state, which either they are very consciously there or they are subconsciously operating, those mental states are called, the mental state or the intention, literal translation, intention at the time of the action. Or you can say will at the time of the action. Here I earlier translated intention, that can be translated as a will, prior to the action, and will at the time of the action. And these are something very crucial, these great teachers, through their long-term observations, analysis, the investigations, they have found that, and they have suggested their followers to really pay attention to those mental states prior to the actions and the mental state at the time of the actions. So this is what all the time, and because I'm not saying from my own understanding or experiences, I'm talking about these more than 2,500 years period of time, and many great the meditators have a tremendous spend tremendous sense of time, whole their life, these great teachers dedicated to understand how our activities of the body, speech are operating relation to our mental states. And that's how these great teachers have explained again and again. And this is why all the time, whenever we gathered here, whatever topic that I am leading the class, I always say a few words at the beginning of the class, say really to make sure the intention to join the class should be at least a neutral mental state. If it is possible, a positive, a constructive. That can be simple without any deep philosophical reasons or profound spiritual or religious purposes, can be just simple, that positive mind. Many of what we talk about, positive thoughts, positive emotions, positive intentions, are usually quite simple mental states, not very sophisticated, not very complicated mental states. Very simple. So what is, many of us here, due to not paying attention to that, therefore we just take for granted and just carry on business as usual. I like that expression. So therefore we are not aware of how our mental states play a role in when we interact individually or collectively. When we interact, we all the time interact. Even at the dream, in the sleep, we interact. So that means either the very real, like we are doing now, or just mentally. Ourselves, our activities, all the time interacting with the other living beings, either the living being themselves, or their environment where they live, or their possessions, or their the feelings and thoughts, all the time. And therefore, interacting with a positive mind will be very, very useful. Then, of course, people who are here, to join the class, have a deep philosophical reasons or some spiritual reasons, like following the teachings of the Buddha. Then it is very, very useful. Motivate yourself, set your intention according to those reasons. That we all may have different reasons, different purposes to come here, to join that. But what is useful is set a positive, and it should come from our heart, not in a form of mimicking, or not in a form of Buddha said so, or Tashi said so, not in that way, from our heart. And in that way, it will benefit. If we continue mimicking what other people do, or what other people have said, many of our way of living our life, we just mimic, copies from others, including our spiritual things. Of course, we mimic, copy what we wear, what we eat, all these things. We mimic or just copy from others, including the spiritual journey. We just mimic from others. Other people have said so. This person has a long name, and therefore, or have lots of entourage and long titles, or wear funny clothes, and that's all. Now I'll go there. And that is not really right way to follow the spiritual path. So anyway, so set a positive, a constructive intention to join this evening's gathering. Oh yeah. So then people who would like to join with me in the prayer book, reading page 27, reading the Refuge and the bodhichitta lines, I mean, this reading is not compulsory. It is only those people who like to, who have been following the teachings of the Buddha. Of course, others can join and hear again part of the setting a positive mind. And from the Buddhist point of view, one of the the most productive, positive mind is the mind taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Buddha as one's own teacher, mentor, his teachings, Dharma, as actual means, methods to be applied in our lives, to be experienced within ourselves, and his Sangha as one's own spiritual friends, supporters, whom that we can learn the spiritual path, whom that we can share the joys, happiness, fulfillment, as well as sadness, frustrations, and the difficulties while in the spiritual journey. So this mind taking refuge in three jewels, is something extremely positive to be held, to be experienced, people who are following the teachings of the Buddha. And the last two lines help us to hold, and another, particularly people who follow within the teachings of the Buddha, Bodhisattva and the teachings, Mahayana teachings, people who follow that tradition, then holding the altruistic awakened mind, bodhichitta, the mind which genuinely, sincerely cares, concerns well-beings of all living creatures, regardless of having different connections, different relationship, receiving different treatments, but from our side, without any exceptions, without any discrimination, to work, think, and also, to feel well-beings of all living creatures, and that is the mind called bodhicitta in Sanskrit, the altruistic awakened mind. So these two mental states, the minds to be experienced, to be held at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of an event, any kind of event, including this kind of gathering. So, and as a part of tradition, these lines are read, to help us to hold these two minds. So we are going to read 3 times. Sangye chöda tsoje chonam la chanju pado dane japso che dage chöje gebe tsonam ge dola penje sangye doba sangye chöda tsoje chonam la chanju pado dane japso che dage jinso jibe tsonamanji dola penje sanje doba jo sanje cheda tsoji chonam la chanju pado dane japso che dage jinso jibe tsonamanji dola penje sanje doba sho. So with this positive and constructive mind, as a part of the intention to join the class, now we'll do a brief silent meditation. And the purpose of the meditation is simply enhance, nurture a calm, clear, and focused mind. A mind which has qualities of clarity, qualities of stillness. That means that our minds have the ability to stay right here and now, if you want to focus on a particular object, to stay with that particular object, such as your breathing or image of Buddha or any other meditation object that you like to choose. Have that kind of ability, not to be distracted easily, or not to be completely become what you call what traditionally called the laxity, but stay to the present moment right here and now. And that is the meaning of stillness, stability, which is very useful mental qualities to have. And also to enhance the mental quality of clarity. Clarity in the sense, the full awareness, the full attention is paid on the right here and now. If you are using your natural breathing as a focus of the object, your mind is fully aware of your breathing. Yet there's no any conceptual mental activities such as analysis, investigations, and so forth. So these two qualities, stillness and the clarities, are nurtured during this short silent meditation in order to experience a calm, clear, and focused mind. Initially, particularly people who are relatively new in the meditation, initially to adopt or to have a comfortable right sitting posture, body posture where there is a structure, such as your back is straight, yet it is completely relaxed. All the muscles, joints, and limbs are completely relaxed. So when you have that kind of sitting posture, and then gently enter into meditation, first to enhance stillness, then enhance the clarity. And when these two qualities are present, then simply your mind simply abide with them. So we'll do this short silent meditation, just about 8 to 9 minutes. come in. The space over there. Oh, yeah. So including this evening, last 3 Tuesday evening, my plan was to use this amazing text, Dhammapada, Buddhist text called Dhammapada, and then just try to touch on 3 main areas of the teachings of the Buddha. The first Tuesday evening, that historical Buddha taught his followers to have a correct and a right view of the things and events, when they interact, including the doer, the actor, the consumer, the persons, individuals, having the right, correct understanding as there are, which is in the Buddhist term is called right view and right thought. These 2 are the out of the 8, the 8 noble paths to liberation, to liberation, or to experience cessation, extinction or cessation of dukkha, sufferings, and the origins of the dukkha. Buddha taught to his followers, these called Noble Eightfold Paths. Noble Eightfold Paths as a means, as a methods to apply in their daily lives, in their everyday lives, initially to ease, to minimize, to reduce the mental anguish, mental difficulties, fears, concerns, worries, and all those confusions, and so forth. And eventually, completely to overcome, completely to get rid of these unhealthy, unhelpful mental states, such as the anger, grasping, and ignorance. Quite often they are called 3 poisons, which the historical Buddha identified as these are the main sources, the main difficulties that we experience. These are the main sources, the main sort of origins of the difficulties that we encounter in our daily lives. Although the external conditions, the causes and conditions, create or to contribute us to feel, the difficulties, but the main causes are within ourselves, and these are mainly these distorted mental states. In the Buddhist term, they are called afflictions, or delusions, whatever term that you use. Mainly the distorted mental states. Distorted in the sense, unable to see, unable to understand the things and events as they are. And the distortion can be in many different layers, many different percentages. Some are 100% completely misunderstood. Some are, less. But that is the Buddhist meaning of affliction, the distortion. And the Buddha, the historical Buddha, and the subsequent Buddhist teachers have found these distorted mental states, these afflictions, such as hatred, the grasping, craving, clinging, the ignorance. These are the main sources of our difficulties, even though external conditions contributes, but the main causes are within ourselves. Now, to deal with these main causes, to deal with these origins of the predicaments that we experience, then solution is should be found within ourselves, not from the outsides. Not from the outsides, because the origins of the difficulties are within ourselves, not from the outside, and they are part of our mental states. Therefore, the solutions should be also cultivated, developed within ourselves, within our mental states. And in that case, these Noble Eightfold Paths that Buddha taught to his followers in his first teaching after his full enlightenment. And out of the Noble Eightfold Path, the first two, which are technically called right view and right thought, are the really in the Buddhist term, cultivating wisdom, developing wisdoms. Wisdom in the sense to see the things and events as they are, less distortions. If it is possible, free from any kind of distortions. And that is what here the wisdom means. So therefore, that's our first Tuesday evening. That is the main topic, and I read a few verses from the Dhammapada. And the last Tuesday evening, again reading some of the nice verses from here, how to live our lives with the ethics, with ethics. Living an ethical life is something not just the Buddha taught. Almost all the founder of the major world religious teachers. Of course, there might be some philosophical different explanations, and so on and so forth. So living an ethical life. And in that context, within the Noble Eightfold Path, the next three, that is right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Right livelihood. And those are the three which out of the Noble Eightfold Path, the relation to how to live an ethical life. And in that context, last Tuesday we read some beautiful verses, like the bees, when they extract nectars from the flowers without distorting the flowers' colors, shapes, and so forth, just extracting what they need. Similar to that, learn to live our lives. When we gather, when we collect our necessities, food, shelter, medicines, friendships, and so forth, for the survival, for the enjoy this human lives, obtain those necessities without destroying other beings' happiness and joys, or without causing, at least a minimum, without causing intentionally, deliberately pain and difficulties, either directly to in their lives or indirectly the environment where they live, either in this generation or the coming generations. And that is something which is very, very crucial to live that kind of life as a follower of the teachings of the Buddha, and in general, as a human beings. As a human beings, to live and live intentionally not causing harm to others is something we all should learn to live that kind of life. Because, as I may have said that, which usually I say, if we live this life, human existence, constantly or frequently, directly or indirectly, causing pain and difficulties to other living beings, that might be human beings or non-human beings, or their environment where they live, then life is not that much, not that much different from what we call animals, isn't it? In certain extents, animals cause less pain and difficulty to others than the humans. The humans, particularly in last, what we create, what we make, those what you call the things may cause harm, not just at our generations, maybe many, many generations to come. Animal will not do that. Those flesh eaters, they only eat when they need. They will not, put somewhere in the bank or, no. They just eat when they need. But same time, we humans can do, something amazing, positive things which animals can't do. So that is here, the second topic, which is, learning to live an ethical life. Quite often when we talk about living an ethical life or living a moral life, we may feel that way, living in that way, restricts our lives. But that feeling of restriction is due to not really knowing the result of living in that ethical life. If we understand the full results or consequences of living an ethical life, we will not feel restricting ourselves. Quite often I use this example. I will again use this. In early 2000s and quite some time, I used to go to Norwich, East Anglia City, and the class that I lead is in a place which is opposite the opposite of that, the other side of the street, there is a big, big nightclub. And the class that I lead is in the evening. It usually start around 7:30 and last around 9:30 or 10, sometimes even a little bit longer, because I used to go there once a month, and then we try to spend a little bit more time. And in the winter time, when we are coming out, finish our and put all the winter hat, scarf, glove, everything, and coat, everything, and when you come out from the place where, if you look at opposite, hardly have any clothes. There's no sign of shivering or think, oh, I'm not. There's a tremendous sense of joy. Laughing, playing each other, but still waiting to get in a queue. So that is the sign. If our minds get what we are doing, then even that, temperature reaching to the 0 in the winter, and around 10:30, 11 in the evening, there's no feeling of, there's no sign of cold, freezing. But usually I say, some of my friends up there, and when we're coming out, say, how's it going to work tomorrow morning? If your daughter or son, go and get a milk at the corner shop. No, it's very cold. They will refuse to go there. So that is the sign of the power of the mind. If we understand, then there's no restriction. There's no feeling of restriction. So therefore, the practicing, living an ethical life is really something deeply fulfilling individually and collectively, not feeling of restriction. If we get it correctly, rightly, understand the full picture, not just bit here and bit there. So that is the second, and out of the Noble Eightfold Path that Buddha taught to his followers, the next three that I mentioned: right action, right speech, and right livelihood. That's very important. Right livelihood. That means how can we gather our necessities without causing, at least minimum intentionally, causing pains to others. Not easy, but we can learn. We can learn. So that is the second last Tuesday, and there were a few nice verses that we read, the relation to this, and that analogy, or that the metaphor, how bees extract honey from the flowers without destroying the flowers, moving one flower to another flower to extract their needs. Same time, not destroying the flowers. And here, living that kind of life, it is through training. It is through training. Day after day, week after week, month after month, bit by bit, if we train ourselves, then over the decades, 2 decades, we'll see the changes. We'll see the difference. So therefore, that is important. So tonight, as you know, the main topic will be technically what is called is the concentration or today I will, instead of concentration, I will use the term meditation. Meditation. The Ta, Gom, Chusum in Tibetan. Tawa, that means the right view, which I briefly mentioned. Joba, that is the living ethical life. And Gomba, Gom, that is, literally it means familiarized. Oneself familiarized with these two, the right view and the ethical way of living. And that is what the third one. The literal translation can be meditation. Ta gom, that is the meditation normally used. Because this term meditation sometimes may lead some misunderstanding. In the Tibetan and also in Sanskrit, bhavana. Although I'm not expert in Sanskrit, but in Tibetan, gom. This term, gom, can be active or can be passive. Gompa, that means, you're used to it. You are familiarized with it. And that is the meaning here. Gom, that means the active. That means familiarize with it. You're familiarized with it. Your life, your mind, your way of living, familiarize with the ethical living, with the right, have the right view. And that is the third one, and which is very useful. Now then, here in the Buddhist way to how to familiarize, ourselves, how to get used to this, like the right view and the right, the ethical way of living. Then, as I mentioned at the beginning of the class, the first one is the mental level. The mental level. If our mental state is trained, then our body, speech will follow. And in that context, I want to read this, the first verse from Dhammapada. First and second verse I would like to read in this nice text. As I mentioned, on the first Tuesday evening, the Dhammapada that I'm reading is translated directly from Pali version. There are Dhammapada translated from Sanskrit version or from Tibetan to English. So there are several different versions. Within the Sanskrit versions, there are different. I was told there are many different translations. So I'm reading. Somebody gave me this book quite some time ago. One of my Theravadan friends. So I've been keeping this book. So that's what I'm reading. A Dhammapada for contemplation. So it has many chapters, and here the chapter is the first chapter. It is titled saying the praises. So the first two verses from that first chapter, I'll just read that first verse. All states of being are determined by mind. It is mind that leads the way. Just as the wheel of the ox cart follows the hoof print of the animal that draws it. So that is very nice, the analogy is given. In the ancient time, or even these days in some part of the world, the carts are pulled by the animals like ox, donkeys, horses, and the wheels, 3 or 4 wheels, 2 wheels, they follow the animals in the animal. So like that. It is saying that our minds are the sort of, our minds lead our activities of the body, speech, and mind. Like the metaphor, the analogy is given here. And then the next verse is almost saying, all states of being are determined by mind. It is mind that leads the way, as surely as our shadow never leaves us. So that is the slightly different analogies, but for the same meaning. And so that is what the Buddha and the subsequently Buddhist teachers have found. That our minds play a big role. So if we manage to work with our mind, to shape our mind, something that what we want, instead of what our minds wants, what they want from us, but from our side, to manage to make our minds to work what direction that we want to work. And that is clearly stated by this, the 14th century, a great Tibetan teacher called Geshe Tashi, one of the founder of one of the 4 Tibetan Buddhist schools, the Gelug schools. And in his many nice, amazing texts, there's one text which is called, the Great Treatises of stages of the path to enlightenment. In Tibetan, there's 1 volume, but in the English version translation, there are 3 volumes. And in the first volume, when he explained the meditation, what is meditation, and at the beginning of that chapter, he talked about meditation is to work or to work with our minds, because up to now our minds, thoughts, emotions are master, master, or in other words, controller of us. They controls us. They demands, and we follows. In our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, saying, I want this, I don't want that, and so forth. And we, like a slave, without hardly having anything to say, we just follow. And meditation, the purpose of the meditation is to really reverse that order. That's what, not exactly what he said, that is what he put it. Reverse that order. That means we have the control where our minds, which direction, when, and what kind of mental states that we would like to experience. And that is the purpose of meditation. Of course, after that, then there are different meditations need to be done, because we are reshaping, restructuring, our many different layers of mental states for many different purposes. So therefore, meditation is not as some kind of, what you call universal mental event. Yes, meditation is mental events or mental activities, but it is not just, in Tibetan, one of the great Indian masters, gave this nice analogies. The analogies is this. Those days they don't have the kilos, weighing. They have this, the buckets to weigh, to measure the quantities of the grain and so forth. So said from the 1 kilos of the barley grains, then pick up 1 barley grain from there, then to say all the grains are same as like this grain, then you are making big mistakes. It's not like that. There are many different shapes, many different colors within the grains, many different sizes, not the same. Although they all are grains, but not the same. Different shapes, different sizes, different taste, different, so forth. So if you say like that, say, meditation is same. And then that's not the case. There are many different meditations for the many different purposes. So it is important to know. So the mind is forerunner of all our activities of the body, speech, and mind. So therefore, working with the mind is the most important part of this right view and the ethical living, having that kind of life. So therefore, as we just did a brief meditation, so as I just a few seconds ago, as I mentioned, to working with our mental states, the initial, the activities, mental activities, or the meditations will be really to build a mental state, developed a mental state, or nurtured a mental state, which has, that our mental state, which has that ability to stay with the one mental event or the activities, and same time to have the clarity. That will be the first things to work with our mental states, to have that kind of quality. Ability to stay with the one mental event, no matter whatever is going around, externally or internally, but our minds stay to the present, right here and now. And same time to have this clarity, full attention, full awareness. And that is what the Buddha and the subsequently Buddhist teachers have found extremely helpful. Again, this great Tibetan master, Geshe, in one of his short texts, we should nurture our minds, like, first I will say in Tibetan, Shangna Yumeri Ongboshin, Tangna Gewe Mikwa Gunlachu, Lusem Lesurongwe, Dejenten. So, have our mental states like, if you want to stay with one event, our mind stays as if mountain. When you have the mountain cannot be moved, no matter how small or big, cannot be moved that easily, like that. But if you want to let go of mind, to do the different mental events, different mental activities, but also at the same time have the ability to let the mental states to go to different mental activities. Shangna yumeri ongbushin. That means, if you want to place the mind with one event, your mind stays like a big mountain, which is immovable. Shangna yumeri ongbushin. Tangna gewe mikpa kunla ju. If you want to let the mind to do the virtuous activities, it has the ability to go as you want. Any kind of virtuous activities, it has the ability to go. No difficulties. Then when your mind is engaging in that kind of mental activities, same time it creates tremendous sense of joy within your mental states and within your body, physical body. Lu, sem, lu is the physical body, sem is the mental. Dejenten, dechen can be translated great bliss or great joy. Den, that means produces or